Colts fans, Jaguar fans, we've got a great Week 2 matchup this Sunday afternoon as the Colts will take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the AFC South as it stands right now is completely wide open and up for grabs as both the Texans and the Colts tied this past weekend 20-20 in Houston, and the Jaguars lost to the Commanders. The Tennessee Titans lost to the New York Football Giants. So the AFC South is wide open and up for grabs. I'm super excited and intrigued for this matchup. I'll be driving back home to Jacksonville this weekend, so I will be at the game. Colts fans, I know this is a highly anticipated game for you guys, considering the fact that you guys tied versus the Texans. You guys lost Week 18 in Jacksonville and missed out on the playoffs last season, a game that I was in attendance for. Plus, everyone just wants to get that first win out of the season and feel like they can get that momentum moving forward. So I'm going to be talking about this matchup today, breaking it down on both sides. And like I always do with every preview matchup, I'm always going to talk about the opponent first. So I'm going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, talk about some things that went on last weekend versus the Texans, and then I'll talk about the keys to the game for the Colts, and then I'll transition into the Jaguars. So let's get right into today's video. So let's talk about the Colts versus the Texans in Week 1 as both teams tied 20-20. Matt Ryan had a very nice Colts debut as Matt Ryan went 32 of 50, 352 yards, 1 touchdown, and only 1 interception. Jonathan Taylor, who was an MVP caliber player last season, followed it up with an impressive Week 1 performance yet again. 31 carries, 161 yards, and 1 touchdown. Thank you for that on my fantasy team. And of course, Michael Pittman Jr., one of the better young wide receivers up and coming in this game. 9 catches, 121 yards, and 1 touchdown. Other depth guys like Hines and Paris Campbell contributed as well. They combined together for 9 catches for 87 yards. And then defensively, we're talking about an Indianapolis Colts team last year that had 7 Pro Bowlers. Even though they missed the playoffs last season, this team and this roster is still immensely talented under Frank Reich. You look at last week's defensive performance by the Indianapolis Colts, not only limiting the Texans to 20 points, but Zaire Franklin, linebacker, 6 tackles. Kwity Paye, rookie out of Michigan, 6 tackles and 2 sacks in his NFL debut. Kenny Moore is a great corner, a guy who I'm definitely scared of, I'm not going to lie. Stephon Gilmore, great veteran, going to be a future Hall of Famer. One of the all-time greats, but you know what? He's not the same player anymore, but Stephon Gilmore still a very good player. DeForest Buckner, Yannick Ngakoue, former Jaguars player. We're all very familiar with him. And of course, formerly known as Darius, Shaquille Leonard, missed Week 1. I can't recall what the injury is off the top of my head, but they're working him slowly back up, and I expect him to play in Week 2, considering the fact that he was a full participant in practice last week. The Colts roster is immensely talented, and while they probably should have gone into Week 1 beating the Houston Texans, it's Week 1 and we do see a lot of duds and we do see a lot of blunders. I still believe that Frank Reich is a very good coach. He is on the hot seat considering what had transpired last season, especially in Week 18, but I do trust that this Indianapolis Colts team is still very good, and I did have them winning the division anyways this year. Now, my 3 keys to the game for the Indianapolis Colts to come out of here with a victory is going to be getting after Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was under duress the entire game, it felt like, versus the Washington Commanders. According to PFF, Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence was under pressure on 21 dropbacks. He completed 6 out of 18 of his passes for 75 yards and 1 interception, which was on the final play for the Jaguars on that side of the ball. When Trevor Lawrence was kept clean on 24 dropbacks, he completed 18 out of 24 passes for 200 yards and a touchdown. Shout out to Demetrius Harvest for that tweet and Pro Football Focus. But clearly, the Colts, if they want to have some success against Trevor Lawrence, in which they got absolutely cooked by Trevor Lawrence in what was his best game in Week 18, the Colts need to get after Trevor Lawrence. The second key for the Colts is keep on running the ball with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was absolutely limited in the Colts season finale in Week 18 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. A couple of goal line stuffs and some 4th down stops. The Jaguars limited what Jonathan Taylor does best, and Jonathan Taylor is one of the best backs and one of the best overall players in the game. They need to keep feeding the beast and one of the best players in the game. And lastly, for the Indianapolis Colts, their last key to the game is taking care of the ball. The Indianapolis Colts had 2 turnovers last weekend, one by Matt Ryan, and I can't recall who the other player was, but they had 2 turnovers on the offensive side of the ball. They had the ball for 39 minutes time of possession. If they can get that over 40 and limit the Jacksonville Jaguars on the offensive side of the ball, that is going to immensely help Frank Reich and Matt Ryan and this offense, and to keep feeding the ball with Jonathan Taylor. Now let's transition into the Jacksonville Jaguars, I will talk about their previous matchup with the Washington Commanders. I won't go too in-depth considering the fact that I've already made a recap video, an entire video on that. But when you look at the Jaguars versus the Commanders, there was a lot of missed opportunities by the Jaguars. And all in all, if you watch the game, the Jaguars beat themselves that game. Nothing taken away from what Washington did, because Washington did a great job getting after Trevor Lawrence, pressuring him, and also making sure that they were taking care of the ball for a majority of the game, because Carson Wentz was pretty accurate, I would say, for a majority of that game. But with the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence in his season debut, 24 of 42, 275 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, which I said was on that third down on the last drive for the Jaguars. And then James Robinson and Travis Etienne averaged 7.5 yards per carry on just 15 carries on the ground for Doug Peterson in this offense. The Jaguars definitely got to use these guys a lot more, considering how explosive and how great they looked in week 1 versus the Commanders. And then also Christian Kirk on the offensive side of the ball. 6 catches, 117 yards in his Jaguars debut, and he played a majority of his snaps in the slot. Christian Kirk was absolutely tearing it up. And keep that same energy, NFL community. The Jaguars overpaid and reset the wide receiver market with Christian Kirk. Thanks a lot, Trent Baalke. Then the Jaguars defensively, Devin Lloyd in his NFL debut had 11 total tackles. It looked like Devin Lloyd was definitely out there struggling, but he really came into his own and really got settled in the second half. He was playing with a lot more physicality, and the game was just kind of slowing down for him, so he led the team in tackles last weekend. Foyesade Oluokun, 8 total tackles. Tyson Campbell, 1 interception, and then Trayvon Walker, what an NFL debut by that young man. He had 4 total tackles, 1 sack, and that interception. Trayvon Walker, I expect to continue to carry on this performance and this energy versus the Indianapolis Colts, especially in his first home game at TIAA Bank Field. And while the Jaguars defensively were not perfect and they stepped it up in the second half, and while the Jaguars offensively were not perfect and missed out on some red zone opportunities, like I said earlier, they definitely shot themselves in the foot and definitely beat themselves, considering the fact that they had an 8-point lead with 11:45 remaining in the fourth quarter. The Jaguars need to capitalize on those. But my 3 keys for the Jaguars to come out of here with a victory and go 1-1 on the season is going to be protecting Trevor Lawrence first and foremost. I already read you the stats. According to PFF, Trevor Lawrence, when he's not under duress, is doing significantly better. The second key for the Jaguars to come out of Sunday with a victory is getting the ground game going. James Robinson and Travis Etienne averaging 7.5 yards per carry combined and only having 15 total carries combined is a disgrace. Press Taylor and Doug Peterson need to lean and utilize those guys considerably more if it's working. And obviously the run game has looked significantly better, and also the run blocking looks significantly better than the pass protection. And lastly, the Jaguars need to continue to create turnovers. The Jaguars came out of Washington with 3 total turnovers defensively. The interception by Campbell, the interception by Trayvon Walker, and also Josh Allen forcing that fumble. The Jaguars had 3 in their season debut. The Jaguars only had 9 total last year combined. The Jaguars literally had a third of their turnovers defensively created than they did all of last season. The Jaguars need to continue to capitalize on that, get after Matt Ryan and create turnovers, give Trevor Lawrence in this offense more opportunities to score the ball. And I'm gonna throw a bonus key in here for the Jaguars. The Jaguars were the most penalized team in the NFL this past weekend with 13 total penalties. The Denver Broncos came in second on Monday Night Football with 12 total penalties. The Jaguars gotta do better there. Some of those were just easy mistakes, neutral zone infraction, false start. I think there was a couple holding penalties, but overall the Jaguars, you need to do better with that. Now I'm gonna get my final score prediction for this game. I'm gonna say that the Jaguars come out on top and squeak out a very tight game. I'm gonna say the Jaguars win this game 26-24. I think that the Jaguars go out there and make the plays necessary. I think that the intense home crowd is definitely gonna come into factor, and the Indianapolis Colts have not won a game in Jacksonville since 2014. Both of these teams, this game is up for grabs, and I think both of these teams need this game for momentum reasons and for head coaching reasons. Doug Peterson wants to get this team back into the win column, and also Frank Reich wants this team to really bounce back after what was a disappointing end to last season. Jaguar fans, Colts fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Drop me a bold take in the comments down below that you have for this game, and also drop me a score prediction for this game as well too. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, man, make sure you guys drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting the subscribe bell to stay tuned for more NBA, Jaguars, and now UCF content that I do here on YouTube. And the last thing I'll say is the fact is I won't be making a recap video for this, because after I leave the game on Sunday afternoon, once the game's over, I gotta drive all the way back to Orlando, and then I've got work the next morning. So the only recap I'm probably gonna give for this video will come with my recap at flteams.com. I'm a journalist at flteams.com, so that's where the recap will be. I'll just be writing an article for flteams.com, someone who I'm partnered and affiliated with for over a year now, and shout out to flteams.com. And make sure y'all go follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. I'm very active and I'm on there posting every single day something on Twitter. So make sure y'all hit the link tree down below so you guys can go follow me on my socials. But thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.